Before playing this Egyptian harp, I'm going to run through a brief history of what it is and what inspired it. If you want to skip ahead to the performance part of this video, feel free to jump to 7 minutes and 30 seconds. This is a replica, made entirely of cedar wood, of one of the grand harps painted onto a wall of the tomb of Egyptian pharaoh Ramesses III, known as KV-11, in the Valley of the Kings in Luxor, Egypt. It is 2 meters high, or about 6'5", which is more or less the height of a modern concert harp. Ramses ruled Egypt more than 3,000 years ago, and his tomb has been known and visited by the curious since antiquity. It is sometimes referred to as the Harper's Tomb because of 2 remarkable life-size paintings of Egyptian priest-musicians playing 2 grand harps. This is a full-size replica of one of those harps, and, as far as I know, it is the only one in the world. There are no physical examples of ancient harps of this size, and the only evidence that they ever existed are the badly damaged paintings in the tomb of Ramses III. This is the harp of Oniris-Shu, named for the god who is seated before the harpist. This is the Egyptian god Shu, the son of the sun god Ra, in his warlike aspect, wearing the 4-plumed crown. Notice that the head of the harpist is bowed and his eyes cast down. You cannot look directly at a god and live. Although only the upper portion of the wall has survived, we can clearly see that the harp had 11 strings, and the painted pattern on the soundbox is relatively intact. We can also see what is left of the outline of the deshret crown of the bust of the pharaoh that sat on the bowl of the harp. It is interesting that the harpist appears to have 2 hands on the same string. One hand is raised and the other is lowered. One possible explanation for this is that the musician is not playing the open string, but playing harmonics. I quickly discovered when playing the replica of this harp that because of the length of the strings, it had an amazing range of bright, resonant harmonics, 5 on every string. One hand of the player lightly touches one of the harmonic nodes on the string, while the other plucks the note. Consequently, on this harp, each string can easily produce 5 notes. We are fortunate that the tomb of Ramses III was visited long ago by artists and explorers who documented and illustrated what they saw before the catastrophic floods of the mid-19th century destroyed much of the lower half of the original wall paintings. The records of these early visitors remain an important resource for modern archaeologists seeking to understand the original design and decoration of this remarkable tomb. One of these early visitors was the artist and illustrator George A. Hoskins, who painted this illustration of the harp of Oniris-Shu in 1832. Artists in those days used an optical device called a camera lucida to project an image of what they were seeing onto a sheet of drawing paper, so they were able to trace an accurate image of exactly what was in front of them. This is the harp and the illustration that inspired the replica you see in this video. It shows us what the instrument looked like before the original frescoes were further damaged by the flash floods of the late 19th century and by a particularly devastating one that occurred in the Valley of the Kings in 1914, when tons of mud, rock, and debris were swept into the tomb. Some of that debris is still in the tomb to this day. This particular type of ancient Egyptian instrument is called an arched harp. That means it is C-shaped, and unlike modern European harps, it has no forepillar. According to the illustrations made by Hoskins and others, the grand harps of Ramses III were what are called ladle harps, meaning that they were shaped more or less like a soup ladle, with a bowl resonator at the base. I think it is safe to assume that these harps were used strictly for solemn, liturgical music and hymns of praise to the gods, and not for light entertainment like smaller Egyptian harps. We know a good deal about ancient Egyptian musical instruments, but because no system of musical notation existed, we know very little about ancient Egyptian music. Melodies were not written down and are presumed to have been traditionally taught by ear, as they are in some places in the world today. There are many papyrus manuscripts and hieroglyphic inscriptions of songs and hymns intended to be sung, so we have the words, but we do not have the melodies. For those interested in the construction of this replica, here is a photo of the instrument in the workshop while I was still building it. The head you see sitting on the instrument is a plastic dummy I used to give some sense of proportion to what I was doing. The final head that sits on the finished harp was made by a professional artist. I tried making one myself and it ended up looking like a Muppet, so I got somebody else to do it. It is probable that the artisans who painted the original frescoes never saw one of these harps and drew from information given to them by those in charge of the decoration of the tomb. The final paintings were intended to be sealed in the tomb for eternity and only enjoyed in the afterlife. They were never meant to be seen by the public. What I am about to sing in the ancient Egyptian language is from a papyrus scroll called simply The History of the Creation of the Gods and of the World. The scroll was discovered in 1861 and is currently in the British Museum. It is sung in the first person by the sun god Ra himself. Alone in the cosmos, he describes the unusual way in which he created his two children, Shu and Tefnut, thereby bringing into existence out of himself the first trinity of divine beings. According to the papyrus, he then wept over his new creation, and men and women were born from the tears that fell from his eyes. It seemed appropriate for this harp, since the tomb of Ramesses III contains what is known as the Litany of Ra, written in hieroglyphs on the walls of its first and second corridors.
Anke perpet, Anke perta, Anke mam satat, Chitfit embed pui. an asheshna emshu an tefna tefnut an cheperki arinef hen Anuk puhat aem khif'a tata'atna im khaybit Kherna emrea chesa asheshna shu Tefnitna tafnut Hepiraem neter Ua neter chemt Emchet aref samna